Italy's economy has been on a downward spiral for over 20 years. Formerly a robust economic force boasting a thriving manufacturing sector, a strong labor force, and a high birth rate, the nation is now witnessing the closure of businesses. Despite a 20-year low in youth unemployment, Italy is grappling with a substantial brain drain, as tens of thousands of skilled workers, crucial to its economic vitality, depart annually. This exodus has incurred an estimated cost of 14 billion euros between 2008 and 2016, not to mention impending future losses. The root of the issue is illustrated by this graph, depicting the country's real GDP, the overall output of its economy. When adjusted for inflation, the figures show a striking resemblance to those of 2005, signifying a lack of genuine economic advancement for over 2 decades. The 2008 financial crisis and the COVID pandemic dealt severe blows. Yet, while other major European economies rebounded and progressed, Italy has lingered in a state of stagnation. In the past 2 decades, since 1999, the average Italian's income has dropped by 10% compared to the average Eurozone country. In contrast, neighboring Slovenia has witnessed a 15% increase in average wages over the same period, adjusting for inflation. While stagnant real wages pose an issue for numerous OECD nations, Italy stands out with the most significant decline in real wages among major European economies. Despite having a substantial GDP of $2.1 trillion, Italy, as the world's largest economy, has consistently held a position in the global top 10 for the past 40 years. However, a blend of economic factors has triggered a downturn, and with the global rise of many emerging economies, predictions indicate that Italy will persist in descending international rankings, expected to drop to 14th by 2030. Italy's economic landscape hasn't always been in this state. In the aftermath of World War II, between 1950 and 1980, it was touted as one of the world's most promising and dynamic economies, marked by significant growth in what is now known as the Italian economic miracle. Similar to numerous other European countries, Italy suffered extensive damage during World War II, with major cities in ruins by 1945 due to heavy bombings and occupations by different armies. Despite being a former adversary of the United States, Italy's strategically advantageous position between Northern Europe and the Mediterranean, along with its proximity to the Iron Curtain, transformed into an ally for the emerging free world. Between 1947 and 1951, the US provided Italy with over $1.2 billion under the Marshall Plan. This influx of funds played a pivotal role in significantly expanding Italy's manufacturing sector. The concurrent events of the Korean War and the establishment of the European Common Market further heightened the demand for Italian products, while reducing trade restrictions. Bolstered by a sizable labor force, Italy experienced a robust economic growth. However, this period of economic prosperity came to an end in 1970 due to a series of economic and political challenges, concluding its post-World War II honeymoon of growth. Although Italy's economy continued to expand, a critical element of sustainable long-term growth, productivity, began to falter. During the 2 decades following World War II, Italy's total factor productivity contributed to over half of the economic growth in the so-called miracle period. However, post-1970, a significant shift occurred. The primary driver of economic growth, total factor productivity, began to stagnate around 1970 and has since declined by 13.7% over the 50 years leading up to 2019, currently impeding current growth prospects. Despite the Italian economy's growth through measures such as deficit spending and currency devaluation, these proved to be short-term stimuli that were unsustainable and failed to enhance total factor productivity, TFP. The lack of focus on TFP is a significant factor behind the economy's stagnation and the decline in real GDP. As a result, the workforce's productivity has diminished, with the value each worker adds per unit of input dropping by 5%. Productivity plays a crucial role in a country's economic growth, enabling increased economic output without a proportional increase in the labor force or capital stock. Italy's persistent productivity challenges stem from factors such as cumbersome labor regulations and judicial inefficiencies. These issues contribute to an inefficient public sector, creating an unfavorable environment for new business development, resulting in reduced investment and hampered overall growth potential. An inefficient public sector poses challenges for firms in any country, but its impact is particularly pronounced in Italy. Research from 2015 reveals that Italian firms exhibit a higher reliance on the public sector. For firms in sectors with above-median dependence on the government, being situated in a province with above-median public efficiency increases output per worker by 13%, highlighting the untapped potential gains. The study also indicates that if efficiency were uniformly elevated to this level, productivity could surge by 22% in areas currently experiencing lower efficiency. Inefficiency extends to domains like the judicial system, where the average time to resolve a legal contract surpasses the OECD average. This pervasive inefficiency contributes to the challenging environment for new business creation in Italy, with productivity disparities persisting nationwide. Italy, akin to many nations, grapples with a geographical divide, notably between the north and central and southern regions. Productivity is typically at its peak in northern Italy, renowned for the industrial triangle comprising Milan, Genoa, and Turin, featuring modern industries in naval production, machinery, and automobiles. In contrast, the central and southern regions host a less developed, heavily subsidized agricultural economy with a history of unemployment and underdevelopment. This graph illustrates the ideal demographic breakdown for a thriving economy, emphasizing a concentration in lower and middle-aged groups, signifying a robust workforce and potential for future economic growth. However, Italy's demographic landscape paints a different picture. The majority of its population resides in the older generations, and there's a notable scarcity of younger individuals to bridge this gap. This imbalance compounds the challenges faced by Italy's stagnant economy, contributing to a decline in productivity. As noted earlier, productivity is pivotal for enhancing economic output, when factors like the labor force remain constant. Yet, Italy's aging demographic signals a forthcoming reduction in both the population and the eligible workforce, leading to a shrinking labor pool. Coupled with stagnant productivity, this scenario sets the stage for a decline in economic growth. The issue appears to be worsening, given Italy's record low birth rate over the past 50 years and the ongoing brain drain, where educated professionals are departing the country in search of employment opportunities elsewhere. Beyond hindering economic growth, an aging workforce places an increasing financial burden on the Italian government. The necessity for heightened spending on social welfare, particularly healthcare and state pension payments, becomes more pronounced with an older population. Currently, these payments account for 18.8% of Italy's GDP, a figure likely to rise in the future as more young people leave the country. Adding to Italy's fiscal challenges is its substantial public debt, one of the highest relative to GDP globally, standing at 144%. This substantial burden diverts significant resources away from investments and activities that could boost economic output, such as infrastructure, as a substantial portion must be allocated to servicing existing debt. Italy's mounting debt levels are increasingly viewed as a pressing concern, impacting the nation's economic landscape. Due to the sluggish economic growth experienced over the past 2 decades and the lingering issue of high youth unemployment, Italy faces a challenging path to generate income and address its towering debt. The burden of the debt has become crippling, making it increasingly challenging to break free from the vicious cycle of primary deficits without resorting to austerity measures. Some estimates suggest that, minus the high interest payments on debt, Italy could be running a comfortable primary surplus, meaning they would be collecting more than they spend. However, the current reality paints a different picture, and the outlook raises concerns about Italy's ability to move forward without encountering a crisis. On September 25, 2022, Italy elected Giorgia Meloni to the government as part of the right-wing Brothers of Italy party, founded in 2012. Initially met with international criticism as another move towards populist leadership, Meloni's one-year tenure has witnessed significant economic changes, reflecting her vision to restructure the Italian economy. Much of the focus has been directed at narrowing the gap between government spending and revenue since 2020. This gap has begun to shrink, and forecasts indicate a more balanced situation by 2028. As highlighted earlier, a substantial drain on the fiscal purse was attributed to welfare payments. To address this, one of Meloni's key reforms involves reducing the size of the welfare state. Rolled out in June of this year, this reform has proven unpopular, as it entails cuts to welfare payments for many citizens. The government is in the process of phasing out a basic income support scheme for low-income households, with Meloni articulating the goal of shifting assistance towards employment. Concurrently, measures are being implemented to confront Italy's impending demographic challenges. Meloni has announced a 50% increase in baby bonus checks for the first year after a child's birth, and a sustained 50% increase for 3 years for families with more than 3 children. Additionally, women opting to extend maternity leave beyond 5 months can now receive 80% of their salary for an extra month, as opposed to the previous 30%. Efforts are also underway to incentivize workforce retention, with bonuses earmarked for those who continue contributing to their pension. While these initiatives underscore Meloni's attempts to address some of Italy's economic issues, the deeply entrenched nature of these challenges implies that solutions cannot be swiftly achieved through a few years of reforms. Italy is likely to persist as a problematic economy for the foreseeable future, even with these concerted efforts. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to be updated when we upload more amazing videos just like this one. That's all for now. See you in the next one.